Welcome to the Steroids Podcast with your host, Dan the Bodybuilder from Thailand. Boom! Boom! Let's get started here. The Steroids Podcast is brought to you by Ultimate Guide to Roids, 109-page ebook by Dan the Bodybuilder from Thailand. Now, for the first time in bodybuilding history, you have someone with no corporate interests and no obligation to please anyone, not walking on eggshells to not offend. Ultimate Guide to Roids gives you the information, the whole truth, not a full truth and a half truth, full truth. Ultimate Guide to Roids gives you the keys to the Lamborghini, gives you the information, and lets you decide what to do with it. It's a crime this information has been suppressed this long. Now let's get on with the podcast.
Okay, welcome to the next episode of the Steroids Podcast. Let's get right to the first question for today. Scott asks, really happy with the ebook, Dan, Ultimate Guide to Roids, and follow all your YouTube videos. Best content out there. Thanks, man. Much appreciated if you could answer my question if you get the chance. I mainly use Test Propionate. Just seems to work with my body better. Everyday injections doesn't shut me down as much, and my sex drive is 10 times better. I've recently started traveling a lot more, about 7 to 10 day trips. What would you suggest to do a jab, a bolus, say 500 test E before I travel? How would you suggest I go about this? Since obviously the testosterone propionate will be out of my system pretty fast. Yeah. The testosterone propionate, even with every other day injections, you'll feel a little drop off on the day that you don't take it. So testosterone propionate, it's really punchy. It's really up and down fast. It's definitely effective taking it every other day. So even though I'm saying it feels different, the gains, though, are not that much different taking it of every other day versus every day. There's just a different feeling to it. But the testosterone propionate, yeah, it definitely has a much bigger mental effect. You said it makes your libido go up a lot more than Test E. I think that's pretty normal, pretty common. People kind of talk about testosterone propionate and testosterone enanthate. They're both just testosterone. It's the same thing. But when you have medicines that hit your bloodstream quicker or slower, and they reach their peak levels quicker or slower, those change the perceived effects of the drug, and it also changes how long the drug is in your system for other reactions in your body to interact with it. So things like aromatizing into estrogen, raising prolactin, etc., and your body trying to maintain homeostasis by changing things. If you've had something that's going up and down really fast, your body isn't going to have as much opportunity to make itself less sensitive. So if you're going to take a travel 7 to 10 days, I would say you should take, like you said, probably 750 milligrams of testosterone enanthate right before you go. Because you said you're doing testosterone propionate injections every day. And I mean, I'd say 100 milligrams per day is a great dose of testosterone propionate. That feels good. That's definitely going to give you the feeling of being on testosterone that you thought it would be like before you ever took steroids. And you're thinking like, what would it be like to take testosterone or something like that? You know, taking 100 milligrams every day of testosterone propionate seems to give that sensation pretty good and pretty reliably too across like a huge cross section of people. So you want to just do that same amount of testosterone that you'd be missing. The testosterone enanthate, like, it peaks after 24 hours and then goes down to about 50% of what its peak level was about 5 days after the shot. And then after 2 weeks, it's almost out of your system. It's very low levels being released from that shot after 2 weeks. So if you take that 750 milligram bolus shot, like say the day of your trip or something like that, you'd have roughly like 700 milligrams or so of that being released during that following week when you're on your trip. So that was a rough number, by the way. When I said 700 milligrams just now, that was not trying to be like a super exact number at all. That was just a total rough estimate. I just threw a number out there. But so anyways, I don't think you have to load the Test E beforehand or anything. That's what I'm trying to say, is you don't have to like load up on the Test E by taking multiple shots or something like that. If you're taking 700 milligrams of Test Pro and then you're gonna be gone for a week, the best way to take care of that would, the day that you left, take a 750 milligram shot of testosterone enanthate. That would be the best way to deal with that. Okay, next question is from Soren, who asks, "Hey, had a question for the podcast. I'm about to start my first cycle. 20 years old, been lifting for about 4 years. I have gyno from puberty. Curious if that will make me more predisposed to estrogenic side effects and if I should take extra precautions during my cycle. The cycle plan is to start with 250 milligrams Test E weekly for 4 weeks to settle into pinning, then go up to 500 milligrams Test E weekly and toss in 30 milligrams Dbol daily. Thanks, your podcast is amazing, has some really valuable info." Thanks, Soren. Yeah, so I do think that you're going to be more susceptible to estrogen side effects for several reasons. One, you're young. And after having worked with a really large number of people, a large cross-section, and the years of people that are interested in steroids and bodybuilding and training and all that is pretty even, like between 20 years old up to like 60 years old. Like, it's a pretty even distribution of men that are interested in bodybuilding and bodybuilding, gym, etc., workout. And so what I've seen is that the older guys have less problems with estrogen than the younger guys. And that's fairly freaking consistent. It seems like, and even in my own life, that's my own body, that's what I noticed in my own body too. And my older friends were telling me that before, when I was in my mid-20s, I had some older friends telling me, like, yeah, I got older and stopped creating so much estrogen. And I was like, oh, really? Because I was a big estrogen creator myself for many years, where, it'd take 1,500 tests or whatever I was taking. I had to be using like 2.5 milligrams of letrozole every day, and then I might take 25 milligrams of exemestane 3 days per week or something like that in addition, and that would control my estrogen. But these days that would be way overkill for me. I would only need a fraction of that, like maybe 1 day of that would be my entire week now. So maybe 1/7 of the dose. So about 10 years later or so, I might need only 1/7 of the dose of anti-estrogen that I used to need So that's pretty interesting how that works with taking steroids for longer periods of time or getting older, and guys that are younger seem to have they seem to be more prone to converting estrogens. You said you've already had gyno from puberty, so you already know that you're sensitive there. For you, I would, just to make things easier on your first cycle, I would consider just using 20 milligrams Nolvadex every day, just to like have your estrogen kind of blocked, and make it less aggressive. And then, but Nolvadex doesn't crash your estrogen. And then using a little bit of AI in addition to the Nolvadex, or maybe a decent amount of AI because you're using Dbol. And Dbol is, like the most estrogenic steroid, with the most aggressive, crazy, powerful estrogen. So, you got a few factors going on here that are combined together might be a mess of estrogen here. So I I think Dbol is great. Dbol is one of the most powerful steroids, right? So it gets a bunch of crap, but that's because people aren't using it right. It's one of the steroids that can have the most profound effects on your body. It can burn fat, it can, and it can build huge amounts of muscle mass and strength, and it's very high firepower. It's in the same class of steroids as Trenbolone and Superdrol. Dbol is also in that top most powerful classes of steroids. And so if you just go on 50 milligrams for 3 or 4 weeks and then go off of it, of course, you're just going to get this like swell up effect where your body gets all big and bloated and you gain some strength while you're using it. And then after you're done, it's gone, because that's just not enough time to consolidate gains. And also, like 50 milligrams, in my opinion, is just too much. And don't get me wrong, I've used up to 100 milligrams per day of Dbol. So I'm not, I'm always trying to say things as unbiased as I can. And after experimentation, I feel like 20 milligrams, 15 milligrams, or 30 milligrams of Dbol is the correct dose per day. And at these doses, it's very effective. It's very effective at building muscle mass, and it's very effective at building strength. And it adds that oomph where your muscles just respond to lifting weights, and they want to keep getting better. They want to keep getting stronger. It really adds that spark, Dbol. But it definitely does come with thicker skin and a huge amount of estrogen conversion for most. But what I'm trying to say is that when you put the dose lower, those problems are minimized a little bit. And then the other thing is that when the cycle is only 3 or 4 weeks, that's not long enough for the muscle to stick. It's got to be double that. It's got to be 6 to 8 weeks. 6 to 8 weeks at 15 to 30 milligrams per day of Dbol works fantastic. All right. So let me make sure I answered everything for your question. I think your cycle sounds good. You're going to be doing first 250 test, then 500 test. Then you're going to toss in Dbol along with that. Just make sure that the estrogen side effect info that we went over is on your mind, because you might have to be dealing with that. Chris asks, "Hey Dan, love the podcast. I used to train hard in my early to mid 20s, had kids, and here I am at 37. Started on Test Sip, 200 milligrams per week, and at 2.5 milligrams Tirzepatide. at 250 pounds. After getting blood work done on total test, I was at 192 nanograms per deciliter total test. Okay, so you had a low testosterone, but you're on Tirzepatide too, and you'd also been dieting, I think, right? But okay, those are just both things that might affect your testosterone levels if you're natural. But let me keep on reading your thing. He says, Chris says, I'm at week 2 of my diet. Okay, so this is new. He's new, starting on the 200 test and the 2.5 milligrams Tirzepatide. And he says he's down to 245 pounds and can see a difference in belly fat. I've been on an SSRI antidepressant for 1 year, which I'm trying to wean off due to brain fog and realizing my testosterone is taking a hit. Plan on blood work in 2 weeks for cholesterol, liver, and estradiol. Does a first cycle of maybe 600 tests C and 300 to 400 milligrams Primo sound like a good 10-week cycle and back to 200 milligrams test for a while? Or should I get my body weight down more before first cycle? Okay. If you're dieting right now, keep doing that, okay? Keep doing that, because I think at 255 pounds, if you've been natural, it's too much body weight and your body fat's probably too high. So keep dieting down and using Tirzepatide while you're dieting along with testosterone is going to be great. That's going to make dieting a lot better for you, because dieting natural is shitty because, yes, it makes your testosterone get low. You end up with low testosterone at the end of your diet, totally. And then the other thing is that you lose a lot of muscle. You lose a lot of muscle. You lose a lot of strength when you're dieting natural. And so that's one of the big things that changes when you start taking any gear at all. Because now you don't have this thing where you're like starving yourself and your body responds by creating less testosterone. Now you've got a set level of testosterone in you. So just being on the 200 milligrams of Test Sip and the 2.5 milligrams of Tirzepatide, you might want to just ride that out. And like say you're a guy, let's say you're 5'11", that's something like that. I'm just guessing, 255 pounds. You'd probably around 200 pounds. That would probably be where you'd be looking trim, and having lines, good shape. And it'd probably go down to there on the 200 Test Sip, and then plan to do a first cycle after that. And then throwing in like the 600 Test C and 400 Primo for, you said 10-week cycle, but I'd go 16 weeks. I think 16 weeks is better. I think it takes a long time to put on solid muscle that sticks and that you can build on from cycle to cycle. I think it takes a long time. So I think longer cycles are better than short cycles. I'm a fan of long cycles. So then after you're done with your cycle, you can go back to your cruise 200 test. And yeah, continue on. It sounds like a good plan. Sounds like a good plan to me that you're on. Sounds like a good path of the fitness journey you're going on. All right, next question. Joey asks, "Hey Dan, love the podcast. I'm 40 years old, 5'10", 230 pounds, pre-cycle weight. This is my first cycle ever, and I'm taking Superdrol daily. I'm seeing immediate, impressive results, but gained 7 pounds in 10 days. I'm not trying to be huge, I just want to look good. I'm scared to do tests or needles or anything that will fuck with my estrogen. I know it's hard on the liver. I'm taking Tudka and a plethora of vitamins and subs. But would stacking Winstrol help cut, or what do you suggest?" Okay, so 5'10", pre-30, 230, and your first cycle taking Superdrol. And yeah, it sounds like you're taking that alone for right now because you're worried about needles, so not taking test. And that's what happens when you first start taking these really powerful steroids, especially one like Superdrol. The first week of being on it, your muscles now have an enhanced ability to store up fuel, to store up potential force. And so a big part of being on steroids or looking like you're on steroids is the look that the steroids give your muscles, because they make you get this, in addition to helping you grow muscle fiber, a major effect on your appearance of having steroids in your blood is that they make your muscles take in all this extra fuel, and along with that's mostly carbohydrates. That fuel is glycogen. And when that comes in, water comes into the muscle too. And water inside the muscle is muscle. It's not like blubbery at all. You know, when you've got a hydrated muscle, then the muscle is just more volumized and big. And so what you're noticing that with gaining 7 pounds in 10 days to start your cycle is that your body, all of a sudden, all your muscles have this changed ability to store carbohydrates and water inside of them. And so you're blowing up. And I'm sure that you saw in the mirror, I'm sure that you saw that too, because that's how Superdrol is. 3 weeks of taking Superdrol, man, you can have a guy looking completely different. In 3 weeks, you can have a guy looking completely different. It is just unbelievable how fast that stuff works. So anyways, don't worry about the weight gain, because that's not going to continue like that. You don't have to worry about 30 days from now having gained another 7 pounds per 10 days, and now you're up 28 pounds or something like that. It's going to level off now. So that's how it is. And like when you go on testosterone too, like, the first week that you're on testosterone, you're going to know, people notice, I just gained 10 pounds. So it's a similar thing when you add in Dbol, when you add in Winstrol, you gain some weight, because any of these steroids that increase that volumizing of the muscle, or they give that cosmetic effect where the muscle gets more round, they all are increasing the amount of storage that your muscles can do, and so weight goes up with that a little bit. Okay, so you don't want to take anything that has any estrogen conversion, you were saying, and you don't want to do tests because no needles. Okay, so if it's like that though, you have to be realistic with what you're doing, is that you're just dabbling with steroids, because you won't be able to get big gains without using some estrogenic steroids, big gains that stick with you for a long time. Because one of the things about steroids is that you got to be on them most of the time in order to be keeping the results from them and building on the results from them. They're not something where, like, this kind of myth that you can, like, go on for one cycle and then, like, you just, like, keep those gains or something for the rest of your life. Like, anyone that goes off cycle looks different immediately when they go off cycle, okay? And that's the thing, is the steroids, you have to be on the steroids most of the time in order to keep the results from the steroids. And if you have no estrogen in your body, then your brain won't work right, because your brain must have estrogen in order to function correctly. And so even like stuff like your libido, because if your estrogen is crashed, for example, or you take only non-aromatizing steroids, it can make your libido go way down. I remember one time I took only This is when I was very new to steroids. I took only Proviron, Winstrol, and Masteron, and my libido went to 0. And that was pretty unexpected. But it's because I had no estrogen at all. And the estrogen is essential for male libido. So I don't think that you'll be able to feel normal if you don't use any estrogenic steroids. Now, you don't have to use testosterone, but you would have to use Dbol as a replacement. And if you took like 5 milligrams of Dbol per day, which is a very low dose of Dbol per day, that would give you the estrogen in your body that you would need for everything to function normally. So there would need to be, what we call that is like hormone replacement. You need like a hormone in your body that can interact with the 5-alpha reductase enzyme and turn into a neurosteroid like that is more powerful. So like a dihydrotestosterone. And then that steroid that you're taking also needs to be able to interact with the aromatase enzyme and turn into an estrogen in order to be considered suitable for hormone replacement. And so of the orals, Dbol is the best for hormone replacement, and anywhere between 5 to 15 milligrams of Dbol per day can be used for that pretty effectively. And so I'm saying consider that if you're planning on being real serious with this, with the bodybuilding, because you're doing no test cycles right now with just orals. Okay, so to get back onto your question, you were saying that the Superdrol is hard on the liver, and so you're taking Tudka and a plethora of vitamins and subs. Okay, good, that's good. But would stacking Winstrol help cut, or what do you suggest? Yeah, I mean it does. Stacking Winstrol with Superdrol is really good, and for me, one of the combos that really worked good for me for getting a wild bodybuilding look was Superdrol stacked with Winstrol stacked with Anadrol, all three going at the same time. That really, really worked for me. Yeah, I mean, that just fucking worked for me. And so I do think that, stacking the Winstrol would help. But, the Superdrol is already good. The Superdrol is already good. You're probably doing great on that alone. But yeah, if you add in 50 milligrams of Winstrol in addition to that, I think you'll get some more firepower. And yes, Winstrol is great for cutting. All right, let's get on to the next question. Andrew asks, I asked a while ago about incorporating Masteron with TRT for libido purposes only. When running TRT or high dose test, I do not have a high libido, and my dick doesn't work nearly as well as when I incorporate a DHT derivative. I ran Masteron for a while and switched to Proviron a week ago. The sex I have is through the roof. I know the textbook answer is get blood work, but I was hoping you could provide some insight into your thoughts on running 25 to 50 milligrams a day of Proviron for sexual function. Okay, so that's funny. That was kind of a funny message. Different people respond different to different steroids. So Masteron is basically an injectable version of Proviron, but there is very slight difference to the hormone. Very slight difference to it, but it's almost identical. And you may have some kind of sensitivity to that, or maybe you've got some shitty Masteron or something like that, or maybe something else was happening in your cycle last time that you're maybe not thinking of right now, and you had some other hormones going on that were interacting with it, or whatever, or some other medications going on that were interacting with the Masteron, or something else you were using that were affecting your libido. Because normally somebody that got a good libido increase from Proviron would also get a good libido increase from Masteron, because and usually Masteron is stronger. So you got the opposite effect of normal, where of typical. I shouldn't say normal. You got the opposite effect of what is typical, and you got Proviron being a stronger libido stimulant than Masteron for you. Typically, Masteron is the stronger one. But you're asking, I think you're asking, can you use Proviron a lot because you like it? So you said thoughts on running 25 to 50 milligrams a day of Proviron for sexual function, and that's pretty much what it's used for, and that's the same. It goes with the same thing for Masteron too. Like people want to use this stuff because it increases your libido and for like sexual functions. It has very limited bodybuilding application. But there's some bodybuilding application to these Proviron and Masteron, but it's limited. And but so you have to keep in mind that like when does somebody typically use Masteron? Well, when they're cutting, and you might say like, oh, okay, well that's because it's a cutting drug or something like that, whatever the hell that means. But no, the reason is because people lose their libidos when they're on a cut, man. When you're on a cut and you're dieting hard, your libido goes away. Your sex drive is gone. Okay? And Masteron is a big stimulant of the libido. Okay? So you take that when you're dieting and it helps keep that side effect away. And usually bodybuilders are guys that don't want to have their sex drive low while they're dieting. Usually they take steroids and they're used to having a high test sex drive and they want it to be that way all the time, including when dieting. Some insights into the bodybuilder's mind. You can take Proviron for an extended period of time, and this is why. Proviron is not the same chemically as other oral steroids. It does not have the 17-alpha alkylation property to it that makes it liver toxic. It's got a different molecule that allows it to pass through the body and get absorbed without being destroyed by the liver. This is not toxic. Proviron is not toxic to the liver. Proviron is supposed to be prescribed to 70-year-old men who have depression and low libido. And there's no information about cycling it in the package insert when you have it pharmaceutical grade. It just says to take it. Take between 1 to 3 per day is what it says. So yeah, you can of course check your blood work on it or something like that. Make sure everything's good with it if you're going to be using it, long term, like year round or something like that. But generally, yeah, it's something that at like 25 milligrams per day or something like that, it can just mostly be used indefinitely. Proviron. All right, next question. Clay asks, "Hey Dan, I hope you're doing great. Have a quick question for you in regards to Enclomiphene cycles. What's the heat about hopping on test and HCG, but not sure I'm ready for that quite yet? I have pretty high natural test levels, and I'm making great gains, but I'd like to add an extra edge." Okay, so you're asking about like testosterone boosters. He's asking about Enclomiphene. So taking that, or taking regular Clomid, when we're taking Nolvadex, or taking HCG. These are all options that somebody can use to get their balls to be really pumping out more, as much testosterone as they can. It's going to be ramping up the activity there. Generally, taking Clomid doesn't feel good, though. And so that's kind of the problem with it, is taking Clomid, Enclomiphene, whatever. I know Enclomiphene is supposed to have less side effects, right? I know that, but the main thing is that the estrogen receptor, they get stimulated in your brain when you take Clomid. Okay, your brain, that you don't feel good. Like most people have a distinct feeling of just I don't feel great when they're using Clomid. So I don't recommend using that. Nolvadex boosts testosterone too. Like taking Clomid or Nolvadex, people can boost their testosterone roughly like 50% or like 75% higher. Like, or yeah, like up to like doubling it, like doubling your testosterone levels. So like it does help. But nobody made great gains on Clomid, man, and nobody like went on Nolvadex and like had fucking great bodybuilding success taking Clomid and Nolvadex. That's not how it works. And it's the same thing even with HCG, because HCG is even stronger at stimulating your natural testosterone levels. But nobody ever went on HCG and fucking won the Mr. Olympia or something like that. Like, it just, that's not, I'm joking there, okay? So, but I'm just going to say that when you're looking for the hormonal effects of bodybuilding and to get it right, like you're like, okay, I want to like make the jump to like a more serious form of bodybuilding. It's kind of like this thing where you have to understand what bodybuilding is in the first place, and it just simply does not exist without steroids and performance enhancing drugs, growth hormones, etc. Bodybuilding does not exist without those things. And so when you make the jump to you kind of just got to go like all the way, if you're trying to like get your feet wet and stuff, you're going to keep getting disappointed and keep not getting the results you're looking for. When you're talking like this, when you send me a message about you want to add an extra edge or something, I can kind of see your mindset a little bit, like, right? Like, I know what you want, and you want steroid gains, okay? That's what you're looking for. You're looking at stuff on Instagram, you're looking at stuff on TikTok, you're seeing certain physiques, and you're saying, man, I want to look like that. And going on Clomid's not going to do it for you. It's not. If you're really thinking bodybuilding is your thing, and you've been doing it for a year or so or more already, and you're thinking like, man, I want to be really serious and really into this, and this is not just something that is going to be something I'm doing for a few months or something, then yeah, I think that it's reasonable to take PEDs, because that's what it takes. When you hear professionals talking about like willing to do like what it takes and stuff, like that's part of it. That's part of it is if you want to do bodybuilding and be serious about it and get a return that is reasonable for your investment, with the amount of work that you put in, time, blood, sweat, and tears, then steroids is part of the equation. If I had like if a young guy, like a boy, asked me about bodybuilding and they were serious about bodybuilding, I would tell them straight up before they started bodybuilding. I would tell them, so you're gonna have to take steroids if you're looking to be a bodybuilder. Like, just know that before you get into this, that and you're getting into the gym, that like you can go there and you can go to the gym and like it and enjoy it and have fun and everything. But if you're going to start being super serious about it and being like, I want to get super strong, I want to get super buff, and I want to look a certain way, I want to look really, really hard and lean and stuff, or just spending all your time even thinking about it, like it's going to be something that's on your mind all the time, is gym and your muscles, or that's something that you're always thinking about. It's what you're thinking about, and this whole bodybuilding concept is it's a hormonally driven thing. It's a hormonally, the hormones are part of the game. Like the uniform for a football team, my opinion is that it's almost like the same way, with taking gear. It's like it's that much with bodybuilding. That's what I'm saying, is that bodybuilding doesn't exist without roids. That's my opinion. That's what I think about it. And so I think that if you're thinking about getting on these test boosters and everything, how about just just stay with how you are natural. And then when you figure out, if you want to use steroids or not, just start using steroids. I always thought, maybe I would use like pro hormones or something before I ever started using steroids too. Like I thought maybe Epistane or Havoc or something like that, or Superdrol became illegal and I never pulled the trigger on it before it got banned. Superdrol, because that used to be sold in supplement stores back when I wanted to use hormones or shit, and I was too scared to use them, because there was a time in my life when I was too scared. I wanted to use steroids, but I was too scared to use them, because see, when I was 17 years old, that was when I first was getting into bodybuilding, I was fascinated by steroids, just fascinated by these chemicals, and just wanted to read about them, but I was too scared to use them. I was much too scared to use them. I was fascinated. I wanted to spend a lot of time reading about them and getting to know about them, but I was just way too scared to pull the trigger on doing that and using them. And that's the way it was actually for 7 years, until I got to the point with my bodybuilding goals where they were just, not happening. And I was doing everything I could, including hiring like trainer and stuff like that, to very, very, very high level trainer, coach, to help me, and still not getting the results. And then finally understanding what the real situation was, for how I was going to get what I wanted, because it was really important to me. One of the things I wanted in my life was to be a bodybuilder. So, I needed to go after that. And that's kind of some of the information about how I started using steroids. Okay. Ollie asks, I'm planning on running Test, Sustanon, and Primo for my next cycle in Turkey. Those things are available in Turkey, OTC. So I guess he's taking a trip to Turkey. But I think lately the Primo might not be OTC over there anymore. That's what I've been hearing. He said he's prescribed Test Propionate from his TRT clinic. He asked, can I add the Test Propionate on top of the Sustanon without any problems? I assume so, but wanted to check in case you've observed any negatives with this combo. Yeah, you can definitely combine the Sustanon and the Test C. So Sustanon is 4 esters of testosterone. It's usually 2 fast esters and 2 medium long esters. So the medium long esters are kind of like enanthate and propionate already. But anyways, you've got 4 different spikes, testosterone level spikes at different times happening when you take a shot of Sustanon. Whereas if you take a shot of Test C, you have the testosterone just spiking one spike. So if you mix the testosterone propionate and the Sustanon, the testosterone propionate is just basically going to raise your baseline levels. And then the peaks from your Sustanon, those peaks are going to be going up higher than they were before, because their baseline level underneath them is going to be kind of raised from the Test C, because it's more stable. It'll feel stronger. You'll be able to feel those together. There's no problem using them together though. You can even mix them in the same syringe. All right, and Ollie says one other thing. Oh, another one for the podcast. Why is it that old school era bodybuilders had so much better skin than today's bodybuilders? Is it due to diet or choice of steroids, you reckon? The diet makes a big difference. Diet has huge effects in the way someone's skin looks. And I know that this is not something that is popular, but the old school bodybuilders have repeatedly said this over and over again. The guys before the 1980s, is that they did not eat a high carbohydrate diet. They ate a low carbohydrate diet. And if you've done any extensive low carbohydrate dieting, you will know very well how much that affects the appearance of your skin. And I mean, it looks good. It looks sleek. It looks very low water retention, virile. These are some of the terms that can be described of the look of someone on a ketogenic diet. But, you know, emaciated can also be a term that can describe them, or gaunt could also be a word that can describe them. So, you know, prolonged low carb dieting or prolonged ketogenic dieting does seem to have negative effects where the body just goes into too much of a starvation mode, combining that with bodybuilding. But, you know, the golden era bodybuilders did have a junk day. They had a junk day where they would eat anything. And then most of the rest of the week, they'd eat very low carb. You know, maybe something like a 50 to 150 grams of carbohydrates per day, with one day of, you know, maybe 1,000 carbohydrates per week. So that kind of low carbs with one very high carb day. And if you're looking to look more like golden era bodybuilders and their skin, the way that their skin looked, and like the lack of puffiness that they had, you should give that a shot. You should give that a low carb dieting a shot, and see how it makes you look. You can still eat a lot of dietary fat and protein, but when those carbs go out, that affects the way that your body holds water, because the carbs affect insulin, and insulin affects your kidneys and how much sodium your kidneys hold. And so if you go, you can be eating a lot of food still. You can be eating a lot of meat, like red meat and stuff like that, eggs, etc. You don't have to be starving, and you can still get this look where you're just bone dry, okay? And that's what these guys were doing. They were eating huge amounts of red meat, huge amounts of eggs, stuff like that. And, you know, they were carbing up one day a week or something like that, maybe 2 days per week, some of them. But then the other times, you know, they weren't starving. They were just eating big, huge portions of red meat, eggs, etc., with very low carbs, and that gives your skin a certain look. And so then there's also, you know, Primo gives your skin a certain look. Masteron also gives your skin a certain look. Winstrol kind of does too. So those were steroids being used back then, and yeah, I think that's pretty much what it comes down to. And then the other thing is that, you know, insulin is just completely not something that golden era bodybuilders were using, and that has an effect on the texture of your muscles, has an effect on your body, the way you look. And so I would say, you know, minimizing the use of insulin or not using it would be another factor here in trying to look more golden era. All right. Next question is from Darren. Okay, Darren comments, "Hey man, been on Retatrutide for 3 months now. Leanest I've ever been. Cycle, 600 test, 300 NPP, 400 Primo, 5 IU HGH a day, Reta 1 milligram every other day. Going to drop the NPP for the final 4 weeks of the cycle and add 150 milligrams Tren per week and 50 milligrams Winstrol per day, then drop down to 150 milligrams test per week for 2 months for a cruise. But I like Reta so much. It's amazing stuff." And yeah, there's a lot of buzz about Retatrutide and GLP-1 agonists. I mean, they're hot right now, and I think that they're really good cutting meds. I think they're revolutionary cutting meds. I do. I've used all three of them myself now. Experimented with each one of them to see what they do, how they're different. Semaglutide, Tirzepatide, and Retatrutide. it definitely seems like Retatrutide is the most advanced and the highest technology of the three. And so, the first one, Semaglutide, one thing that anybody who uses it is going to notice is that gives you like a ton of acid reflux. Like you're really battling acid reflux on Retatrutide, but then Tirzepatide and Retatrutide don't really cause that. But on the other hand, I feel like the appetite suppressant effects of semaglutide, of just like stopping a person from eating, just like not eating, like that's, somebody who was eating out of control before and then just getting it so that they're not doing that at all anymore. And probably just, not even wanting to eat anything. I think semaglutide is probably the superior one at being able to do that. And then as far as like just strongest, best recomp effects, best fat burning effects, best weight loss effects, Retatrutide is probably the number one for that. So that's my little synopsis on a few of the different GLP-1 agonists. And the main effect with these, though, you guys, is that they help you change your body weight. They help you lose weight on the scale. Don't be putting too much high hopes on the recomp effects of these. The recomp effects are there, but it's the very slightly. There's slight recomp effects, okay? But the main thing remains that these things help you to bring your body weight down. Okay? I think that they're great paired with like growth hormone, paired with steroids and everything. And then, once you've got a whole fucking stack going like that, then yeah, you can get some good recomp results. But I wouldn't really consider the GLP-1 agonists like recomp agents. Like they're definitely not going to like recomp you the way that like Tren would recomp you or like Superdrol would recomp you. It's not like that. Okay. So that's what I wanted to say, was that they're mainly for helping you to lose weight, and they are super effective at that. And they work, they don't go in your brain, but they work on your brain and your nerves. And they send signals that make your brain and your nerves act as though you've already been fed. And so the lethargy that normally comes from dieting is not really there. And also the stress and the kind of like pain and suffering, a lot of it is like removed. The pain and stress and kind of suffering of dieting, a lot of it is just removed and just feel normal. So that's why these GLP-1 agonists are like revolutionary. That's why I think they're for as cutting drugs. Like it can be game changers for people who have like had problems losing weight for a long time. Can take these and be like, 3-4 months, hit it hard for 3 to 4 months, lose 30-40 pounds, because losing 10 pounds a month is pretty standard if you're taking a more like medium higher dose. All right, and the last question for today is from Philip. He asks, I'm on TRT 200 milligrams Test Propionate per week. I'm wanting to cut down 20 to 30 pounds. Adding what one compound would you say would get me the best results? Well, I think adding Retatrutide or Semaglutide or Tirzepatide, one of the GLP agonists, would be that one. You want to cut down, and that's going to require eating less. So adding one of those, a dose that could work would be 1 milligram or 1.5 milligrams of semaglutide per week, or similar dose with the Tirzepatide, or with the Retatrutide, somewhere between 2.5 to 5 milligrams per week. And that'll take your appetite way down. And help you not feel tired so you can keep your activity levels up while you're not eating so much. And then as a stimulant fat burner, there's always clenbuterol. 40 micrograms per day of clenbuterol. If you're not eating a lot and you got the clenbuterol in your system liberating fat like crazy, you can burn fat fast as hell. So I would say GLP-1 agonist, number one, and number two, adding a stimulant like clenbuterol. All right, that's going to be the last question for today. If you guys need further access to my bodybuilding knowledge, you can sign up for my 1-month daily text messaging program, which is like a bodybuilding service that I do where any bodybuilding related questions you can ask me each day, WhatsApp text messaging, and I'll get back to your questions within 24 hours or less. It's $99 for a month. And then the other service that I do is the 1-hour phone call consultation, which is $59. Get on the phone for an hour and talk bodybuilding and talk about training, diet, supplements, what you're doing, what your program is, and go over everything. So you can hit me up at steroidspodcast@gmail.com.